So yesterday, the Supreme Court lifted a temporary injunction on what's been called the transgender ban from the military. Now, it's a little more nuanced than that. It's not necessarily a transgender ban, but let's just go with the vernacular. It was lifted, and Pete Hegseth actually delivered remarks sort of emphasizing the new approach that the military is taking now. This is new from the the Obama administration, who first instituted the open acceptance of transgender individuals in the military, and then under Biden, it was put on steroids, where we were paying for everybody's procedures. We were even using drag queens to help recruit people into the military, and shockingly, using drag queens to try to recruit warriors ended up not recruiting warriors. Recruited more drag queens. We're told it's about 8,000 at this point of people who are identified as transgender in the military. The disposition of those existing service members is yet to be determined, actually, whether they get honorable discharged or moved into another classification. Not sure, waiting for that announcement. But Hegseth was quite clear on what this means for the future of the military, at least under his watch, and the commander-in-chief, President Trump's watch.
No more pronouns. No more climate change obsession, no more emergency vaccine mandates, no more dudes in dresses. We're done with that shit.
And now that's how you recruit warriors. And of course, the recruitment numbers show it. You've got huge increase in the military recruitment numbers right now because, well, like I said, using a drag queen to try to get people to join the Navy or the Marines or the Army seemed to be less effective. So CNN wanted to do a very high-minded and intellectual panel discussion about this issue. So, of course, they brought on a dude who dresses up like a woman. Not just any dude. This dude was in the military and advocates for more transgender individuals to wear the uniform. And of course, you bring in somebody who is personally directly affected and is a personal advocate for this issue, someone who literally earns a living on this. Go ahead and Google their name and you'll see all of the speeches that they make money on and all of the advocacy that that this guy does. This is his profit center right now. So, of course, this panel discussion is going to get personal, very personal. And we're here for it.
Hurts lethality and it hurts readiness. What do you say to that?
Well, there's no evidence of that. I think that, if that was the case, we've seen transgender people serving honorably for the last several years. And what has changed between now and then? They've just woken up to a new administration who has a different outlook on their ability to serve. So I think that, if you talk to people who are serving on active duty alongside transgender troops, they're not making these complaints. The leaders in the military are not making these complaints. These are political complaints about military service. So I think that all of the courts that have looked at this issue and looked at it, and said there's nothing in fact to back up what the government is claiming here. In fact, the judges challenged them to produce evidence, and they couldn't produce any evidence. So I think it's a really dark day for our country, where basically we're allowed to discriminate against a class of people.
All right, you'll see the rest of it, I promise. I just want to jump in real fast here. When he says, by the way, fooling anyone? Anyone fooled? Anyone at all? Thank you. Never. When he says, if you ask anybody who's currently serving whether they have a problem with this or whether it affects their service, let me assure you of something. They're not allowed to tell the truth about that. They're not. Whatever corporation you work in right now, whatever DEI, human resources training you have to sit through every quarter or every year that indoctrinates you into what you're allowed to say on the job or not. Let me tell you, it's times 100 in the military. It has been beat out. And I know Pete Hegseth has lifted all the DEI requirements and all that stuff. Okay, that's only 100 days old, dude. Okay, if you've been in the military for like 4, 5, 6 years, you have been indoctrinated with that. It's like you don't say a damn thing. You don't say a damn thing. Whether it makes you uncomfortable, whether you don't like showering, whether you don't like changing your clothes, whether you don't feel safe knowing that that person is fighting shoulder to shoulder with you, you won't say. So it's so disingenuous. You ask anyone in the military, they won't say that they have a problem with it. They're not allowed to say they have a problem with it. Okay. Number one. Number two, it's like, oh, it doesn't affect our ability to fight a war. Then do you realize the kind of hormone medication that this person takes on a daily basis to alter their appearance and alter their voice even? And if you're in the middle of the transition process, especially if you've had surgery, I don't know the disposition of this person's nuts and berries, but if you have had a surgery, then it's ongoing, just like the type of hormones that you have to take on a regular basis to stay healthy. Kind of hard to do when you're in the military, especially if you're deployed, especially if you're in a combat situation. Did you know that if you have a peanut allergy, you cannot enlist in the military? That's one of the questions. If you're being recruited, you're in a recruitment office, you want to fill out your application so you can be in the Army or be in the Marines. One of the questions, do you have a peanut allergy? If it's yes, you're sent packing. Sorry, dude, we can't take you. Sorry, ma'am, about your peanut allergy, but we can't take you because it's a liability. You might be exposed at any given time. We can't be prepared for that. But if you're transgender and you intend to go into the military and have the military and the tax dollars of the American people pay for your procedure and your ongoing medical treatment, including hormones on a daily basis, oh, that's fine. That's just fine. Just don't get a hive if you're at a Reese's peanut butter cup. Then you're out. So seriously. All right, let's let the panel discussion continue.
If they can't produce evidence that this actually does, in fact, have an impact on readiness, I mean, how is this not then just discrimination?
Well, it's the opinion of the commander-in-chief, who, according to our Constitution, is the head of the military. I mean, regardless of anyone's opinion or anybody's, whatever side you're on, whether you're for it or against it, at some juncture, the president is the commander-in-chief of the military, and he has and should have broad latitude to determine how the armed forces should be operated. And so I think that's what he's doing here. I think that's ultimately what the court said today, was that the president is the commander in chief, and we gotta respect that.
But I mean, to her point, if there's not a downside, and it's been going on for years now, and I mean, I'm just presenting your argument to them.
Yeah.
What is the argument other than Trump, Hegseth just doesn't want trans people in the military?
Well, I mean, I think that the president, we'll ultimately see. I think that's why the court is allowing the president to move forward with this until it works itself through the court system. Maybe the Supreme Court will be the final arbiter here to say, yeah or nay, you can do this. But ultimately, I think the court is showcasing deference to the executive, saying that, look, you're the president, you're over the military. You do, for the most part, get to sort of dictate the standards of our military. And I don't really see how you can push back against that. Again, we'll see what happens in the court.
I can.
Yeah,
I'm sorry, I can. What if the president wakes up tomorrow and says, I don't want any black people in the military? Do we give deference to him on that? Well, no. No, wait a second. It's not ridiculous. It's not ridiculous because you're discriminating against a group of people in a very similar way. No,
I knew you were going to say that. But
excuse me. Well, I'm glad you.
I'll leave this one
But
alone
hold on.
today.
I'm curious. Why is it ridiculous? I mean, you just said the president should be the one who just decides.
Right.
So if he decides, he wakes up tomorrow and says, I think it's bad for morale, it's bad for cohesiveness, for there to be black people in the military, Latino people in the military, just in her hypothetical scenario, what's the difference between that and what we're seeing here?
I mean, are you really going to go down this ridiculous?
I'm
sorry.
This is ridiculous. It is a ridiculous argument.
Well, okay.
The president,
what they've already
the president
said
and the Secretary of Defense have an argument here. They believe that readiness and unit cohesion and overall operations of the military are impacted by this. That is their opinion, and that is the opinion of the commander-in-chief, who the Constitution gives broad latitude to run the armed forces. So that's their opinion. You're allowed to have one. You're allowed to have one. You're also allowed to run for president and become commander-in-chief yourself. But until you do, he's the commander-in-chief.
I have to just say, I didn't hear an answer to the hypothetical, right? I just didn't hear it. The definition of discrimination, according to the American Psychological Association, discrimination is the unfair or prejudicial treatment of people or groups based on characteristics such as race, gender, age, or sexual orientation. What is the difference between, prohibiting certain groups like transgender people from serving versus, you know, people based on their race or even their gender, frankly.
I personally think there's a difference, and I'm just going to leave it at that.
Well,
so he's said he's going to leave it at that. And I want to just jump in here real fast, not to be, you know, that guy or anything and give you the actually, but there's a very real and good answer to this. And I want to provide it for you in case your liberal brother-in-law at the dinner table this weekend or the crazy, you know, blue-haired woman in the cubicle 2 down from you wants to raise this same stupid argument. Well, what's keeping him from saying that black people can't be in the military? It's called an immutable characteristic. It's what almost all discrimination law is based on in this country, an immutable characteristic. You can't change the fact that you're a man or a woman. Your sex is an immutable characteristic, and you can't be discriminated against your sex. Your race is also an immutable characteristic. You can't change if you're black. You can't change if you're Asian. You can't change if you're white. That's something immutable. It has nothing to do with you. You have no control over it, and you cannot be discriminated against if it's an immutable characteristic. Did you hear the first example I gave you? That's the question answers itself. Is being transgender an immutable characteristic? Well, no, it's not, because being transgender literally means you are changing your gender. You are changing and going through various processes to re-represent how you were born. All right. And I know that everyone's going to say, oh, it has to do with, you know, you're born in the wrong body. And it's really just, you know, you really are a woman. You were just accidentally put into a man's body. Okay, where's the evidence of that? Show me the scientific proof that somebody was born in the wrong body. Okay? The only thing that is tangible physical evidence that you can show me is that you've got one of these, and now you want everyone to believe you don't have one of those. You have changed it. That means, by definition, it is not an immutable characteristic. That's the answer. But for them to raise this as an issue is so obviously offensive to anyone who voted in the last election, because number one, they're saying you're a bigot for voting for the man who said exactly what he's doing right now. He promised he'd do it, and now he's doing it. You had your chance to make your case. Kamala Harris could have made the case saying, hey, we should have as many trans people in the military as possible, and I'm going to do whatever I can to recruit. In fact, we need a whole branch of military service for transgender individuals. She didn't do that. She tried to run away from this issue, right? Because even she knew it was a loser. Okay, so number one, it's insulting to all of you who voted for the exact policy that's been enacted right now. But number two, it's insulting to you because they obviously are trying to make you say, well, we know that Trump's a racist, so since he did this to transgender people, he's going to do this to black people. And that's offensive to you too, because it suggests that you support a racist. It's like they've never, ever learned a new political argument. It's been 10 years now. It doesn't work. Try something new. Also, this whole idea that they can't prove any evidence that it has affected morale or the ability for the American military to fight. Let me just tell you, year-by-year recruitment levels have been devastated since this policy got put in place. Let me give you some quick numbers. 2015, total enlistments, about 150,000. 2016, little under 150,000. Same in 17. 2018, as this policy starts to robustly take place, down to 148,000. 2019, just under 148,000. 2020, ditto. 2021, 145,000. These are recruitments in the military. 2022, when they started utilizing all of the social media propaganda to get a TikTok drag queen in his Navy costume to try to encourage more transgender individuals joining the military, precipitous drop. From 2021 to 2022, it went from 145,000 to 140,000. Ditto 2023. Now suddenly, in 2024, just toward the last quarter, after Trump was running for president, saying he was going to do away with these policies, and as Hegseth was named Secretary of Defense, you saw a huge uptick. In the final quarter, as the election was moving forward. And right now, all of the goals are getting hit. That's a tangible result of a broad base of policies in the military, but you cannot tell me that this is not one of them. All right, I'll let the panel continue here, but just wanted to jump in because any opportunity they have to play the race card and to paint Trump as a neo-Nazi racist Klansman who can't wait for segregation, because by playing that card, what they're really saying is that you are a supporter of a neo-Nazi Klansman, which means, of course, you're a Nazi yourself. That's what they do because they loathe you. And they think that you're hateful. They think you're a bigot. And, of course, they think you're stupid. Because you actually have to go out of your way to make the argument that this is probably not the best thing for military cohesion and not the primary focus of making sure that you're the best war-fighting machine. And understand that that's the argument here. The Commander-in-Chief, the Secretary of Defense, and those on this panel who are supporting this decision are saying that they're making this judgment based on what is best for our military and turning our military into the best warfighting machine that we can have. The dude who wears a dress and all the other activists on the panel who are saying he'll do this to black people next, they're making the argument either Trump's a bigot or what does this mean to the individual? So, right? What does this mean to the poor transgender person who wants to wear the uniform? Wearing the uniform is not a right. Okay? And when your entirety of your argument about our military and about what's the best for our military and our Department of Defense has to do with what the individual needs and desires, you've lost the argument. Because that's not what our military is about. Our military is not a construct of the federal government to make sure that everybody feels good. That's not the purpose. And that's all they're reduced to here. All right, watch how the argument transpires. It's Looney Tunes.
I will say, do you believe that race and are you saying that the quality of race and the quality of transgender are the same?
I'm just asking the question because I think you're making there's a distinction, but you're not explaining why.
No, I'm asking you guys brought up the hypothetical. Are you arguing that someone's race is the same as someone choosing to become transgender?
But your argument, you've made the argument twice that the Commander-in-Chief's opinion is all that matters. You've said that twice now.
Well, so under the Constitution, yes.
So if he wakes up tomorrow and says it's not okay to be gay or lesbian and serve, because that's his opinion. There's nothing to back that up. They meet the physical standards. They meet the intellectual standards. They have voluntarily decided to serve their country, to give their life for this country. So many of us don't have to. That it's the opinion without any basis in fact that's what matters more than the Constitution of equal rights and equal protection.
Go ahead.
No, I was going to say the other thing, or there's a few things that bother me about this, and mostly it was the language of the policy, right? When you're reading at some of these words, transgender people as inherently untruthful, undisciplined, dishonorable. That's like a very weighty thing to say about people who are courageously deciding to protect this country. The other problem, Scott, is that it's never enough. It's bathrooms today. It's sports today. It's sports tomorrow. It's the military today.
No, it's also sports today, by the way.
Yeah, it is sports today. And
80% of Americans agree, by the way.
Oh, that's fine. And 80%, guess what? The majority sometimes is wrong. That also happens, right? Because the majority used to believe that Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was somebody who was a threat, that somebody who was not a good American. The majority of people used to be against civil rights. Were they right? No, they weren't. And so the whole point is when you target one group, and inevitably that line moves to everybody else. And I'm not saying he's coming for black people tomorrow, but considering that this is a military or this is a leadership that is already using DEI as code word for black people already when it comes to the military, suddenly when you don't protect the most vulnerable, you wind up making it worse for everybody else that's in the margin.
What do you mean by vulnerable?
You don't think trans people are vulnerable in this country?
So is it your position that the Commander-in-Chief should recruit people who you're describing as vulnerable into the lethal fighting force?
He should recruit people who want to serve and protect this country. And it's really kind of ironic considering he dodged the draft that he suddenly has an opinion about.
He has an opinion because he won the election.
All right. So this is a fascinating development here, as if you've noticed, all of the people on the panel who are supporting this policy are women and a dude who identifies as a woman and a black woman to boot, who all make the argument that if the president is allowed to do this, he's going to do it to gay people, he's going to do it to black people because Martin Luther King, which is a fascinating argument. And I think that they should go with this. And this should be the rallying cry for the next several election cycles, actually. Because as Scott Jennings very calmly and rationally pointed out, 80% of the American people are on the right side of this. And I'm so sick of hearing about how conservatives are on the wrong side of history. You're on the wrong side of history on this, wrong side of the history. Trust me, these are the people who are on the wrong side of history on this. And history will bear that out. The damage that they have done to our society and to our culture and to children is immeasurable at the moment. We will be able to measure it, though, soon. Also, it's interesting to me as the Democrat Party and the woke political equation in this country continue to hemorrhage black male votes, that they want to double down on this and say that, you know, this is the same thing as the civil rights struggles and Martin Luther King's marches in the 60s. And then say, and by the way, if you want to be true to Martin Luther King and the civil rights struggle, then you got to be in favor of transgender individuals playing sports, going to the locker room with your daughter or son, and being in the military. Just wait and see how the black vote in America, especially black males, ends up reacting to that message, because that's the definition right now of the woke Democrat Party, and they're not turning around from it in any way whatsoever. And God bless them. This is where they are. But the fact that that conversation even took place on a major cable news network, all right, not major, CNN, is indicative of how shallow the arguments are and how shallow the discussion is. And I feel for Jennings and Shermichael there, where, you know, they say, well, if he could do this to transgender people, what's stopping him from doing to black people? And literally their answer was, are you nuts? Are you nuts? That's your argument? And the answer is yes, they are, in fact. They're nuts.